Folks, I am super excited about our guest today. He is returning. He is a guy with the know how, the knowledge, and experience of the military and all of the inner workings of it that can give us a unique insight to the chaos and the shenanigans going on with the Trump regime and their catastrophic collapse in Iran with the Iran war. But first, I want to say, as a dad, I know how important it is that when you make a threat, when you issue a threat to your kids, you have to be able to follow through with it, or else they won't respect you. You will lose credibility. Moms, dads, grandparents, you all know this out there, right? If you issue that threat, and hang on a second while I put this up here. If you issue that threat, hey, if you guys don't shut up, I'm going to turn this car around and we're not going to the amusement park or whatever. You have to actually be able to follow through on that threat, because then if you just say that and you do nothing, they're going to tune you out. Nobody's going to take you seriously. Your threat will carry no weight. At the same token, if you issue a bombastic threat like, if you move a single muscle, I will throw your ass out of this moving car. Well, that's an entirely different thing, because then now you're a murderer, right? And that's not good for the kids either. Okay. But I say that to make a point that if you're the president of the United States and you issue a threat, it should be a credible one. And if your idea of a credible threat is to threaten genocide, to threaten to wipe out an entire civilization, you're not just that guy. You're not supposed to be just that guy who's drunk at the end of the bar talking shit. You're supposed to be a responsible, sober, mature, and rational person who is responsible for the lives of 300 million plus people. So your lethality, the lethality of your weapons, of your military, that can't be just taken lightly as, just a Truth Social post. You have to consider the ramifications of what you say. And then if you go and back out, if you back out so often that you have a nickname given to you, Taco, Trump always chickens out, that's not good either. It's not good for you. It's not good for us as a nation. That's a national security threat. And here you are on Easter Sunday talking issuing threats saying you'll be living in hell and praise be to Allah. What kind of shit is that, bro? Act like a grown up. You're the president. You wanted this job. Act like it. For crying out loud. It's so bad. It is so bad that the people of Iran gathered hands, they joined hands around a power plant because you threatened to blow up. When you threaten to blow up a power plant, that is a civilian infrastructure. People's lives depend on people in the hospital, people giving birth, people on respirators, everybody who needs electricity, whose lives depend on it. You are threatening to take that away. That's the type of shit that Dr. Evil does. For crying out loud. And it's the same son of a bitch who cried and complained that he didn't get a Nobel Peace Prize, to the point where he debased himself by accepting it from the actual Nobel Peace Prize winner. Anyway, joining us today, rejoining us, he's back on the show with us to determine how screwed we are. Is former Navy senior chief and best-selling author, the writer of the book The Plot to Betray America, and many, many other books. Malcolm Nance, I am so excited to have him here with us. So I hope you're ready to get into a lot of shite today, because I am. Let's go. Incredible person, incredible human being. Yes, we're famous. Yes. Hey, and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Defiant Weekly. I'm your host, Majid Bedelin, aka BDD, aka Brooklyn Dad Defiant, and with us today, as I promised, is none other than Mr. Malcolm Nance. Malcolm, I'm glad we have you with us, even though your picture is a little fuzzy there. You're better fuzzy than not at all.
Yeah, we're having some 5G issues out here in the rural upstates of New York.
Indeed. I was really it almost felt like a stroke to me, like a stroke of genius, a stroke of clairvoyance, that I asked you to be on the show and had no idea that things were going to unfold as they did. But with Donald Trump, every week is some kind of some kind of calamity, some kind of chaos. I want to get your initial reaction as a veteran to Donald Trump's threat to wipe out a whole civilization.
Yeah, I've spent a lot of time on TV and radio in the last day going over that with people. This is without any question. I like to have a good time. I make jokes on many of my shows. This is one place where I'm going to be deathly serious. Um, if you know anything about the nuclear chain of command, how an atomic war would unfold, how we deploy weapons, and what happens after those weapons are detonated. And I don't mean watching the movie, Oppenheimer. I mean how these things actually work and what the results are once they go off. You, certainly all the members of the armed forces that have to handle these, we're ardently anti-nukes. We just do not like them. They are weapons that there's no coming back from it.
Yeah.
Everybody gets affected by them, even if it's a small one. It goes up into the stratosphere, spreads debris that's radioactive all throughout the stratosphere, and it comes down in rain, and cows eat it, and you can have it in your milk in 72 hours. So this is not something that people should play with. And I had some pretty forceful things the first minutes I heard this on my Black Man Spy podcast, where I said, this is not a joke. This is not a place where you can threaten genocide as president of the United States. No American president has ever hinted that they would actively use an atomic bomb, even in the height of the Cuban Missile Crisis. Their words were very careful. That's not what's happening here. Donald Trump threatened genocide. It shows his utter incompetence and incompatibility for the job, and he should be relieved of his command.
What do you say to and I'm sorry, this question is a little bit loaded, but what do you say to the MAGA followers who claim that this was some kind of 3D chess? Like they'll say something like, it was a master stroke. He played them because he's now positioning himself as an unhinged crazy man, and that insanity is what helped his negotiation.
Well, it didn't help the negotiation. Apparently, this deal had been hammered out over the previous days, right? And he announced this about 10 hours before the final deal, and it came out 8 hours after he made his comments earlier not in the Rose Garden, but at the Easter egg hunt, where he essentially flopped. He flip flopped. He said that we were surrendering. He said, I would rather take the oil, but the American people, they don't want it. They want us to come home. They want to go home. I'd rather do this, but that's, we're going to have to do that. He admitted that he was negotiating an agreement and that he was going to end the war. He's going to taco. But He wanted this document out there to make it look like he was playing Madman. Let me tell you something. When Nixon came up with the Madman strategy, people did not credibly believe that he would do it because he was a rational, educated man, World War II veteran. He understood the limits of power and presidential power and understood using atomic weapons would get atomic weapons used in return and it would end the earth, right? But for
Yeah.
Donald Trump, it's all fun. It's just new toys, and can almost hear them discussing this. Pete Hegseth, let's threaten to nuke them. Let's threaten to use an atomic bomb. Somebody says, okay, don't use the word nuke. And he goes, I will destroy a civilization will die,
Yeah.
right? And it will never come back. You threaten to use a nuke. And I got all these MAGAs come up on my TikTok, and my Twitter and come up and go, he never said nuke. Well, and I go, my challenge, the MAGA challenge is explain to me the exact weapon system in the US inventory that can destroy a civilization. I'll wait.
Yeah.
Because you could drop every bomb we have in storage, every bullet that we have, and you couldn't destroy a civilization. But you could with one Trident D3 missile, D4 missile launched from a ballistic missile submarine that has 12 independent warheads. You can hit every major city in Iran above 500,000 people, and you could destroy that 5,000-year-old civilization, right? So by threatening it, by opening his mouth about it as if it was viable, we're not going to be able to forget about this, right? Because next time, his foreign policy is being held between point A and point B, the two ears, and he is speaking to a mirror, which is his only audience. And at some point, he will talk himself into being, I could be the president who used an atomic bomb since Harry Truman. And I wouldn't be surprised if Stephen Miller was there encouraging that kind of talk.
I actually heard
and that
somebody.
Cooler heads talked him down.
I heard somebody yesterday saying that if he were to do that, he would threaten to use 3 so that he could one up Truman, because Truman dropped obviously the 2. What is the strategic military benefit to a country's leader repeatedly making threats and then not following through on them? Because I understand you brought up that madman theory. I'm not familiar with it, but obviously it's something to make people think that you are insane, out of your mind. That's why nobody believed it from Nixon. But is there what is the benefit of constantly making out bombastic threats and then not following through?
Well, forget about the threats. It's just statements. The world is very clear. Everyone knows Donald Trump is a pathological liar. Everyone knows that. You cannot trust his word. The only time you can trust his word when it involves himself and money. And that's it. No other time can he be believed. So it's not a question of, I'm going to bomb you back to the Stone Ages. It's a question of when will the money pressures get too hot on him to where people with real money, right, multi-billionaires who are losing market capitalization. I mean, the top 5 major top 5 major tech industry companies lost $1 trillion of market valuation. $1 trillion in stocks, bonds, all of their value disappeared because of Donald Trump.
How
and
much
what's he going to do? He's going to tell you he'll get it back for you. I'm good for it. He's a 3-card Monty punk. That's what he really is.
How much of a calculation went into for the stocks went into his maneuvers in the past couple of days? Like, what was he playing for the stock market?
That's going to take real investigation because I don't believe that it was about the market as much as it was about a select group of friends and his family. Good example, 3 days before the invasion before the attack on Iran, Baron Trump buys $30 million in stock options on
Mm.
oil, right?
Yeah.
That right there tells you, dad told him, go get some stock. And then within days, it was if he bought it at $67 a barrel and he sold at the high, which was $114 a barrel,
Yeah.
right? I mean, he makes almost 47% profit in a matter of a day,
Damn.
right? And he
Yeah.
sells it, and then buys when it dips back down. When his father says some crazy comment and it dipped back down to 87, he buys it again, waits for dad to say some crazy comment, which he knows is coming. This needs to be investigated. People need to be sent to prison. CNN did an analysis, Wall Street Journal did an analysis. There is a very easy line where you can see people betting, like the other day,
Yeah.
$160 million was bet to short the market the day before he made his Madman theory thing, right?
Huh.
So, people are making money hand over fist in this administration.
Wow.
They are stealing from the American people. They're
Um.
crooks.
So I wanted to ask you about what I had heard over. I think it was just yesterday that some people were saying that there are dual purpose civilian infrastructure, like where they're saying that if you hit it and it's technically considered civilian infrastructure, that you could also rationalize. You could say, well, it also serves a dual purpose as like a military. Is that real? Is that a real thing?
Sure. Dual purpose is a very real thing. I mean, freeze dried camping meals are dual purpose, right? You use them in the military. We buy them from a company like Mountain House, and you can have them when you're camping.
Yeah,
Same
no,
thing
I
with power generation and power plants and bridges. Bridges are logistics, they're actually legitimate targets. But the bridge that they attacked, the big bridge, the first, that they attacked about 2 weeks ago, was not
right.
completed and would not be completed for months. So that was Trump and Hegseth carrying out a vanity attack where they wanted to show they could destroy this. I mean, the Israelis were hitting other bridges going into Western Iran. That's legitimate. Same thing with power. However, you need to weigh out what your objective for the power is. Are you hitting the substation that's supporting a military base and you black out that military base? That's legitimate. If you are blacking out the city of Tehran, like they did in Venezuela, you know, if you black that out temporarily, that's a military objective. If you destroy all the power plants with the intent to punish the population, then you have committed a war crime,
Mm,
and which is why Gaza, the leveling of in every street in Gaza, war crime, right?
yeah.
Hit an individual power plant, short it out like we did in Serbia in the 1990s, not a war crime. But early on, I think it was within the first 72 hours of the war, Hegseth put out a statement through General Kane that any dual use facility, any facility that is protected, hospitals, schools, mosque, that he determines is being used for military purposes will not be spared and will be destroyed. And I said, this guy has, you have to understand something about Hegseth. He is a white supremacist. He is a racist. He is a adjudicated sexual assaulter, aka he committed a rape that he paid
Yeah.
a woman off for. So now you need
Mm,
to know everything you need to know, right? He's had 7 children with 3 baby mamas, 2 of whom were mistresses.
wow.
He has no moral core. He is a white supremacist. And I'm saying this as an intelligence professional. If you asked
Yeah.
me, this was the defense minister of Burundi, I would be writing all of this down in the exact same words, right? Except
Yeah.
maybe the defense minister of Burundi is not an alcoholic as well. So,
Right.
no,
Wow.
facts,
Yeah.
facts.
Yeah.
Now I can tell you what his mindset is. He hates, this is a guy who called Arabs, ragheads and towel heads and phrases like that, right?
Yeah.
yeah, a bunch of dirty Arabs or something like that. He has tattoo on his arm that says kafir, right? Infidel, pride
Right.
in wanting to insult his enemy.
Yeah.
Okay. That shows a disrespect for the fact that the war on terrorism was an American war to defend Islam from extremism.
Mm.
Every country we fought for was an ally of ours who just happened to be Muslim. So
Yeah.
this guy, now I'm giving you his mindset. To him, destroying the Grand Mosque in Shiraz, right? The Blue Mosque in Shiraz, or the Grand Mosque in Isfahan, all these beautiful century, 3 centuries, 2, 3, 4, 5 centuries, that, old facilities. Did I say 4, 5? I think they're 1,400 years old, some of these things, right?
Wow.
The Grand Mosque in Qum. He has a crusader's mindset towards them. I'm going to eliminate their culture. This is the same, but the moron doesn't understand that the Crusades were 9 separate wars, each one of which was lost, right? They were designed
Right.
to stoke the population in Europe, right? And every time they came there, they got their asses handed to them. Saladin al-Ayyubi, an Iraqi Kurd, right? Beat them
Yeah.
senseless to the point where there was never another crusade. So, and showed the dominance of Islamic thought. He doesn't understand any of that. He's got a crusader cross here because it's cool. He is an idiot. And I'm going to quote General Stanley McChrystal, right? Head of special operations under Obama before he got fired for insulting President Obama. 2 weeks ago, he made a statement about Hegseth, and he says, this man, there's a whole video, you should go watch it. And he says, this man speaks like a potential war criminal. I was like, damn, Stanley McChrystal. Wow. Then he didn't hold back. He goes, he is a disgraced major from the National Guard who was kicked out of the DC National Guard. And I was like, God damn. I mean, this is a 4-star special operations commando general, right? Retired, kicking Pete Hegseth's ass. And said the only reason he got the job was through political patronage of the president, not through any qualification, and that he is fully unqualified for the job. And you know what? If he said that about me, right, and I was in any role in the Department of Defense, I would resign immediately and become a manager at a Starbucks. No, these people think they are gods. And to give you an example, all Pete Hegseth could do is this: go blow up stuff, right? I'm using this, what is it? The South Park cartoon version of Pete Hegseth, right? We got bombs and guns and dudes. And you just think about that. It's like, go blow up Iran, right? And he's, and he does it, but he doesn't seem to understand this. I am senior enlisted, right? My job as the pinnacle of the enlisted pyramid, up, which means I give leadership down to the individual stupid sailor or Marine or soldier or Marine. And then I give advice, counsel, and professionalism up the chain of command because I am the technical expert. Ship can't go unless I tell you how it's going, right? Mm-hmm. Officers don't study that stuff. They sign off on our work. Pete Hegseth doesn't even understand the limitations of what he knows and what he doesn't know, right? And he's just like, I'm gonna screw over all them guys who, made fun of me when a National Guard major, right? I know better. All he knew how to do was point and say, bomb that thing. Yeah. No strategy, no objectives. Iran won. And people go to me all the time. They were like, well, we dropped 14,000 bombs. In Vietnam, we dropped 3 times the amount of bombs than we dropped in World War II. And I do not see the democratically elected government of Vietnam, which has been communist since 1975, who are making our Nikes, but we lost. Do you see the president and democratically elected parliament and government of Afghanistan right now? We have full spectrum dominance. There was no environment where we did not win and could not go when we chose. Guys in flip-flops beat our ass senseless. And
You
we
the
left
last
because you got to have a strategy.
the last time you were with me here, you did we did discuss a little bit the whole notion of asymmetrical warfare when you have a smaller opponent dealing with a much larger adversary. But I thought what was interesting of note was that you made a prediction of sorts when we were talking. You said you correctly predicted that the Iranian regime was not going to collapse because they have a pretty deep bench. Let me play that clip for a minute, and because I have a question for you on the other side of the clip.
This is a personalities and leadership decapitation strike. The problem with a country that has 93 million people and was born of an Islamic fundamentalist revolution, which the people wanted, is that they have a deep bench. You can't kill every imam in Iran. It's just not possible. But Israel convinced Trump that we're going to do this. And Trump is now viewing all of these campaigns out of two playbooks. One, Benjamin Netanyahu's, the others, Tom Clancy's. And at the end of a book, Some of All Fears, this is exactly what he did. The United States assassinated the leader of Iran with a laser-guided bomb that CIA guys were designating with a laser at the end of the book. And that's what these guys think. I'm not joking.
This is very interesting what you said, and because it ties in exactly with what I was going to ask you. So you said that Okay. So,
when was that show? Was that just after the war started?
Yeah. That was if it was March 2nd that the war. Wait, when did the war start? Was it
3 days? Started February 28th.
Oh, so then
noon on
it
Saturday.
was about. So I think you were here on March 5th. But yeah, it was within a week. And I want to go with the same sports analogy, right? With we're talking about a deep bench. So taking into consideration the military degradation of Iran's, equipment, their offensive weaponry, the achieving of goals of the United States, the defense and the defiance of Iran. What would the U.S.-Iran war scorecard be if this was a football game?
Oh, if it was a football game?
Yeah.
That's interesting because, one, the Americans definitely scored all the points. Okay. It would be, how can I put it? Oh, well, let's put it this way. It would be, I think it would be like, 210-7, right? But then you find out that, the other opposing team coach, hates you, right? Doesn't want to deal with it, is losing bets that he's making off to the side and forfeits the game. That's what's happened here. He's making side bets in Vegas and he forfeits the game so that he loses because he has to lose. He has to lose in order to, the entire sports book out in Vegas is betting under the table with him. And that's what the global economy is, right? All the heavies who are like, you're winning too much. You've blown out the margins of our bets and we're all going to lose our shirts. So Trump we quit. We're not playing anymore. We're not coming back on the field. That's what's happened here.
Yeah, this is what's peculiar to me because, right, with a war, supposedly you have military objectives, clear objectives. You have an exit strategy, all that stuff, right? In this, their presumed objectives were to eliminate the enriched uranium, to remove that, to change the regime, right? Regime change. They failed on both of those major accounts, right? The Strait of Hormuz, was open before they launched this war. It is now closed.
Yeah, the
I
world
mean, it
was
was open this
normal on
morning. It was
February
open this.
27th.
Yeah,
It wasn't
yeah.
open this morning. Two
No.
ships passed through this morning along
Oh,
the Iranians, what we now call the Iranian multipass, right? The Easy Pass access toll booth, which goes
okay.
between Kashem Island, Larak Island, and then around Hormuz Island. Two ships were authorized to transit this morning, and they had pre-authorization, and that's they paid their $2 million fine, which in the scheme of a $100 million tanker and $250 million of oil on board that ship, $2 million is nothing. However, on February 27th, uh, you just sailed in and out of the Strait of Hormuz, right?
Yeah,
Trump
yeah.
did this. Trump did this. And then I had MAGA this morning going, he didn't agree to any of that. That's not what's going on. And then Trump makes a comment this morning, maybe we're going to do a joint venture with the Iranians. Maybe we're going to do a cost sharing. This man is the stupidest man on this planet. Because I'm going to make another prediction. U.S. warships, ships associated with the United States government, ships that are contracted with the United States government, like USNS ships, United States naval ships that provide support and logistics, they will not be allowed into the Persian Gulf anymore. And now we'll have to decide whether, because we no longer have freedom of navigation, which I sailed through the SOH a dozen times, including once in combat. And we were fighting the Iranians, right? They just didn't have the capacity to stop us. Now, that, by the way, they had one anti-ship missile. They fired it at my ship in a missile duel that we had with an Iranian missile boat. We won, they lost. They missed us by 150 feet, though. Okay, it was close. You know what Iran did after that? They bought thousands of missiles over the next 25 years. They're like, oh, no, whatever. We're not playing this game anymore. We want to close the Strait of Hormuz. We can do it with mines. We can do it with guys in boats. We can do it with guys with guns. We can do it with anti-ship missiles. We can do it with ballistic anti-ship missiles that fly into space and come down and hit ships like they did off of Yemen. And we're going to experiment with them all off Yemen. And then they're going to say, oh, did we mention we have mini subs and things like that? And unmanned submarines that hit ships. One blew up two ships that were side by side up in Basra about 3 weeks ago, people. Iran was like, no, we're never going to have the results of the Battle of Syria Island or Operation Praying Mantis again. We're going to make it. You could destroy our Navy. Ships are easy. It's all the asymmetric things that are not the Navy that will bite you in the ass. And there's no insurance company in the world that will insure that, which is why the Strait of Hormuz wasn't closed by the Iranians. It was closed by the insurance companies that refused to risk all of those, $250 million cargoes.
So Iran is currently using these super duper cheap drones, basically, to keep ships from going through the Strait of Hormuz. Let's assume that your prediction is right on the money and they refuse to allow any U.S. ships to go through the Strait of Hormuz. What is the United States' next play? How do they flip that? How do they make that stop happening? How do they get their ships through?
We could challenge it and say, we have freedom of navigation. We're going to fight our way through. Right. And based on this 10-point deal, we got to pay $2 million to come in on Easy Pass, right? On the Iranian Easy Pass. We jokingly call it multi-pass, like from the Fifth Element, multi-pass.
Yeah, I just rewatched that this weekend.
And you know what? We made up, if you watch my podcast in the morning, we made up an IRGC multi-pass that says funny. No bombs, no guns, no drones. And, and it's got the Mujtaba Khamenei's picture on it. It says with thumbs up. So multi-pass. 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 And it is a multi-pass because it gets you're allowed to unload oil in Carg Island. You're allowed to transit the Strait of Hormuz. You're allowed to go without molestation down the 500 nautical miles down the eastern Persian Gulf. And then you get to go right through, VIP passageway through the IRGC checkpoint between Kashem Island and Larak Island. So, yeah, it's a real multi-pass. And, and it also gets you sanction-free oil. So the United States raised all sanctions on any oil that is on a ship cannot be sanctioned. We cannot stop that vessel. It's crazy. We gave around $14 billion in profits from that.
Yeah, they seem to be making
so we
out like
funded our own war against ourselves. Oh yeah,
like
we're making bank here.
We gave them so much more leverage. I wanted to ask you about the 10-point Iran's 10-point proposal. I wanted to get your opinion of it. Shit, I gotta turn that off. So number one is a formal U.S. commitment to non-aggression against Iran. So basically a guarantee that no more of this bullshit. You will not be waging war on us anymore. Continued Iranian control of the Strait of Hormuz. Recognition of Iran's right to enrichment. These first three sound like major, like, forget about it, like showstoppers. What do you think?
Oh, well, you would think that, right? And you know what's even worse? The 15-point plan. So they're going to use the 10-point plan and the 15-point plan as the basis. And the top of the 10-point plan is we can enrich uranium. We will not stop our nuclear program. It's up to negotiation, which Obama had at 0% of weapons grade material, and any radioactive material could only be enriched to 3.5%. Trump tore it up, and they were like, "Great, we're enriching it to 60, go on to 90% bomb grade." But as that cartoon says, Mr. Trump, what did you find so offensive about the JCPOA? He goes, Obama's signature, right? Yeah. When the black guy did it. So. The Iranians are going, okay, you are willing to discuss all this? Awesome. Let's ask for everything else. And the other 10 points are hilarious if you really put them into context. Go ahead. Go with the rest. They're really funny.
Yeah. Full removal of U.S. primary sanctions and secondary sanctions, termination of all UN Security Council resolutions against Iran, termination of all IAEA Board of Governors resolutions, payment of compensation. Payment of compensation. So, what are they talking about? Like the not axles, the pallets of cash.
Yeah, pallets of cash. Look, these guys. That was Iran's money that we returned to them legally. That we had to do it due to court order. This is us giving them. You know what? Go to the end. I want to tell you what this 10 points plus the other 15 points are, because they're almost as bad. Go on.
Withdrawal of U.S. military forces from the region and ceasefire across all fronts, including attacks against the Islamic resistance in Lebanon.
Yeah. You know what this is?
What is it?
If Trump has agreed to this as the basic framework of this, Trump gave Iran a January 6th pardon, right? He gave them everything he gave the January 6ers. They're allowed to get compensation. They're making money. They're getting jobs in the U.S. government, right? They get to sue the United States government for money, and they're making bank, right? Well, welcome to the jungle. Iran is now party to this. Trump has almost given them, and he goes through this little meme in his head that you killed Mujtaba al-Khamenei's father and his wife and his child and have wounded him. And you think that this guy, and he's going to wake up out of a coma and he's going to go, I'm sure you Muslims. By the way, I get the full pass on my knowledge of Shia Islam. I spent a lot of time in Karbala and Najaf, Iran, in the shrines of Ali, Hussein, and I got the full Islamic education on Shia Islam. So I could almost see him waking up out of his coma, right? And going, I had a dream that I was visited by Khalif Ali, and I had tea with Imam Hussein and Hassan, and they showed me Zulfikar, the two-headed double-edged sword, and said, "You will take this and your enemies will bow at your feet." And I woke up, it wasn't all a dream. Am I back in Kansas, right? And they'll go,
Mm-hmm.
no, Trump accepted all of that. It wasn't a dream.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
That's as good as it can get, right? It'll be like,
Yeah.
oh my God, it was real. You know,
I wouldn't be surprised, because this regime so far has done like the most head scratching things. Like, look, I'm no military guy at all, right? But I know if you're going to wage a war with an adversary, whether you think it's a small, insignificant adversary or a big and powerful one, you got to have a plan, and then you got to have a backup plan, and you have to have your ducks in a row. And it literally looked like Netanyahu grabbed us by the collar and said, "Come here," and then shoved us into this thing. And we're like, what? Because there was no anything, there was no plan. They talked about being shocked. They talked about being shocked that Iran was attacking other countries in the region, that they didn't think that was going to happen. Like, dude, really? Like, what? That's like, that's like a football team going to play the team cross town and not doing research on the team's quarterback or their running back or their defense,
No. It's worse than that. Okay. It's like having a professional football team, which, by the way, Trump ran a football team into the ground. If you might remember that, the AFL, right? I think he ran the whole league into the ground to where it was eliminated, right? The AFL, he was an owner. This is the equivalent of hiring the best players in the world, just the best players in the world, best coaches, best strategists. And they're all waiting there, right? They're all warmed up. They've got their Adidas tracksuits on, and they are ready to play the World Cup, right? They have qualified in every game up to this point, and now it's time for the big game going up against your number one opponent. And the owner of the club comes into the team room and said, I know you've all prepared for this moment, but I want you all to take out your lacrosse sticks and go onto the football field with these. Right? It is. He's not even in the same game, right? And to be honest, he doesn't know what a lacrosse stick is for. He just knows that rich white guys play it at high school. So this is Trump with the U.S. Armed Forces is the NFL. They will play in spite of his incompetence. Right? He's a drunk owner who is, runs out onto the football field, spinning in circles, shooting an AK-47, right? So he literally destroyed every component that the U.S. Armed Forces has done. Here's what we did. We dropped a shitload of bombs and dropped virtually every precision missile we had in our inventory, and now we have none for a war with China. We have as little as 20% of what is needed to start and sustain a war with China. Really? And China's going to go, works for me. We'll invade Taiwan next week. We'll ramp that up. We have no ability to defend Taiwan now. He used every advanced anti-surface missile that we had. Tomahawks were old, okay? We were firing those things off. It was the JSSM, right? The Joint Surface Strike Missile, which was the stealth advanced version of it. Why did we even launch them? There's no fucking radars there, right? There's no stealth for them to stealth against. Why don't we just not use those and just drop bombs? Because they wanted to make big loud noises and use all the toys.
I'd be curious to see if Trump has an ownership stake in the companies that supply us with those same missiles that you said we depleted.
Well,
we're down to 80%.
Eric and Don Jr. had,
but they're in the drones, right?
Let me tell you. Yeah, but here's how stupid this drone story is. Iran builds a drone. They sell it to Russia. Russia fires that at Ukraine as one of the 55,000 Shahed drones they fired off since September 2022, right? I was in Ukraine when the first drones came in, and we were like, what the F is that, right? Buzzing over our head, going, brrr, little moped motor, right? And I said, oh, it's a V1 bomb from World War II, only with propellers. So they
Wait, was it
fire off
loud?
that drone. Oh,
Was
it's
it too
loud.
loud?
It's loud like it's loud like somebody has a moped with a giant engine, and it goes brrr. And do you know how the Ukrainians track this? This is brilliance. The Ukrainians realized that audible detection was their biggest drawback because they're loud and you can hear them. So what they did was they set up a network of like 1,000 mobile phones on poles that at the first sign of an air raid, you could dial in and activate all of them and listen for which one of those phones on which bearing had a propeller sound go over it.
Wow.
And then they cued in all their anti-aircraft guns. Just phones on a pole, cheap burner phones that they could activate that were in waterproof casings that were listening for the propeller. And they shot down 50,000 of these things, right? In 5 years. Well, they shot down one of those drones. They jammed it. That drone's electronics went haywire. It landed completely whole in a field. The Ukrainians recovered it. At the United States' request, they gave the United States that Shahed drone. Defense Advanced Research Agency, Defense Intelligence Agency exploit it. They lay it out. They redesign the plan showing what it's made up of. They give that plan to a company, right? I can't remember the name of the thing. It's like Aero Systems. I can't recall. But they give that to an American company and tell them, can you build us a drone? And they called it, yeah. So the American company reverse engineers it using a more sophisticated satellite dish on its back and they called it the Lucas drone, low cost unmanned aerial system, right? That's the company Eric and Donald Trump Jr. in, and they got a $650 million no bid contract to produce the Shahed drone that Ukraine had given them that had been fired at Ukraine. So they've produced an American version of it, right? And with better satellite. Fast forward to last week. Last week, the Iranians plucked one out of the water that launched and just fell into the water, and they didn't recover it. So now the Iranians have the improved satellite dish version of that drone in their possession. So it's come full circle. In a year, Iran will be producing better, more lethal drones thanks to the United States reverse engineering their drone. It's the stupidest story ever. Thank you, Eric and Trump and Don Jr., for giving Iran a better drone.
You mentioned a few minutes ago that, and I'm stunned if this is true, that we are down to like 20% of our supply remaining. If that's the case,
not our defensive missiles, our offensive precision missiles.
Still,
cruise missiles that we would fire at China.
I mean, what's 20%? Like, like 100,000 or 200,000 missiles?
No, like a few thousand.
Oh,
like
shit.
A few thousand.
That's no good at all.
China, if we were at war with China, we would need like 100,000 of those. We don't even have the capacity to build these, right now. We just expended everything. All this bullshit about Trump saying, he built the military. He didn't. He shut down factories and turned off assembly lines, and now he's getting $1.5 trillion. And now we have to replace every piece of ordnance we had. The Patriot missiles were defensive, right? They were meant to shoot down incoming ballistic missiles. But it was the other ones, the Theater High Altitude Air Defense, the PAC-3 surface-to-air missile, things like that. But the offensive missiles, the JSSM, strike missile, the precision launch rocket system, ATACMs, things that we should have been giving to Ukraine to break Russia. We hoarded them, and now they're gone. By the way, we fired off more defensive anti-air missile systems against Iran in 1 week than Ukraine fired in 5 years.
Mm.
And don't forget, Ukraine was being bombarded every day, every night by these missiles. We fired off more in 1 week.
So my question is, with our supply being so heavily depleted, was there more pressure on Trump? Was he more desperate to bring this Iran war to an end than Iran, because knowing that we're almost out of our offensive weapons?
No, not at all. Not at all. Not at all. I think.
Why? If our supply is so low, why wouldn't he try to end
that's not why. That's not how Trump thinks. It's not how Trump works. The reason that we ended this war is because all of Trump's billionaire friends were hemorrhaging money by the trillions. The Gulf states may have lost as much as $3 trillion in destroyed profits, market capitalization, lost investments, lost interest income, and lost income from all the byproducts that they had in the world. Just gone. Gone. Right? So by backing Trump, they not only don't get security, the bully that just kicked their ass, that forced Trump to leave the neighborhood, is now there with his, baseball bat with a big railroad spike coming out of it, and goes, guys, why don't we make unilateral peace deals so that I don't kick your ass in the future? And they're like, he's still there, his gang's still there. You're there. You took your best shot. Most of you got your asses kicked. And the United States, your character, your whatever you want to call it, your Avenger, has left the stadium, right? I mean, what is it? It reminds me of. Let's use something in popular fiction, because remember when, what was her name? Captain Marvel. The female character in the Marvel movies, who is in theory the most powerful of all Marvel characters.
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember when she left for about 6 movies? She just disappeared.
Yeah. She
right?
was
And
off
everything
in space
bad
somewhere.
happened.
Yeah,
everything bad happened, and then she showed up for the last part of, defeating the bad guy. She shows up as like,
Endgame.
Where have you been? There's been 6 movies. There's been 6 movies. Where'd your character go? You disappeared this thing could have ended in the next movie if you had been around. She's the United States.
Oh, wow.
It's gone. She's gone. There's some other appointment that she had to go to. The United States now is going to leave the region, because the Gulf states are now going to go, hey, listen, we can't be protected by you. We could buy defensive missile systems, and now we know how to operate them because we just got our asses kicked. But the Qataris, I'm telling you straight out the box, Qatar will quietly claim that the U.S. military base, Central Command Forward out there at Al Udeid is too damaged, and it has to be reconstructed, and that U.S. forces will be repositioning themselves to a base in Israel called Ovda Air Base out in eastern Israel in the Negev Desert. They will quietly close U.S. Central Command. And Central Command will move to Israel. Not because it's a better location, but because the Qataris are going to say, y'all need to go. Y'all need to go. All you know what you cost us? You cost us 20% of the world's natural gas exports. That's what you cost us.
Malcolm, I got to ask you why, because I consider myself pretty, well informed as far as politics is concerned, but it wasn't until the past few years that I noticed that Israel seems to have an outsized influence on the United States foreign policy and just in general. Why is that?
You just noticed that? You just noticed that?
Yeah, I'm
If you
sorry. I
recall
feel
early
I feel
on,
dumb admitting that, but I literally had not noticed that until the past like 4 years.
well, if you didn't know, if it wasn't for a black guy who formerly worked for the OSS named Ralph Barunch, right, there would be no state of Israel. He's the guy that helped map the whole thing, form the United Nations, and then drew out the partition and helped Israel's, and Palestine survive, right? Just want to point that out to you, right? Brother's always out there unscrewing up problems. But let's talk about the arc of support for Israel, right? This was a time in the post-war where it was fashionable to be an anti-Semite in the United States if you were white, right? We did not really support Israel until 1973. We really didn't. No, that's not entirely true. After the 67 war, because in 1956, Israel invaded the Sinai Peninsula at the request of Britain and France for the Operation Musketeer, right? The Suez Canal re-seizure from Gamal Abdel Nasser. Who ended that seizure? President Dwight D. Eisenhower told the British and the French they have to leave. The Suez Canal belongs to Egypt. But Israel didn't give back the Sinai Peninsula, right? They gave back parts of it. Then in the 67 war, the Israelis drove hard up there. And this is where the Paul Newman version of the world comes into. I, by the way, full disclosure, raised in an Orthodox Jewish neighborhood. I attended Passover Cedars when I was a kid. I figured out what the black box was for in front of people's houses, why they wear yarmulkes, and the first language I ever learned was Yiddish. So, first foreign language I ever learned was Yiddish, and it set me on my career in Middle East counterterrorism. So that being said, and almost married an Israeli, right? Dodge that bullet. So, what I'm saying here is, by the time the 60s arrived and the movie Exodus came out with Paul Newman, the story was being told through Hollywood, through Bible movies, right? Like Moses and the Ten Commandments and things like that. And this is where people saw Israel as a foundational state in Judeo-Christian society, right? And so the arc, and not to mention a lot of Italians in the United States, Italians and Irish in the United States, made the 1960s Bible movie boom become about supporting Israel. That's why the United States, after the 67 war, saw using French fighter jets given to Israel, the Israelis kick all the Arab states' asses who were all clients of Russia. And so the United States said, hey, we want onto this, and we started providing them with F-4 Phantom jets, right? And it was a geopolitical chess game against Russian influence with the Egyptians, the Syrians, the Saudis, the Libyans, the Iraqis, even the Lebanese to a certain extent, although they were mainly British. The Jordanians were British backed. But in the 67 war, every one of those countries, every country in the Middle East and North Africa declared war on Israel. And Israel kicked their ass left, right, and center. It wasn't until the 73 war when things got bad. And a good reference for that is watch the movie. Gosh, I'm having a senior moment here.
Is it the one
Watch
with George Clooney?
No. Is there a movie with George Clooney? No, Golda, about Golda Meir with Helen Mirren. And you understand the geopolitical dynamic that it really was about Russia versus the United States. Again, Israel hinted that maybe we'll just nuke Cairo. And that's when the United States helped end the war, and our full-blown support for Israel became that. It's part of our culture too, right? I mean, I've always been a big supporter of Israel. There's a big difference for me between Israel and Benjamin Netanyahu. That's two entirely different worlds. Because Netanyahu has a completely different agenda from even Trump. And he essentially led Trump around by the nose ring. And that's why Trump's mad at him now.
you can't separate Netanyahu from Israel. For all intents and purposes, where goes Netanyahu goes Israel, correct? Right? We are
Yeah, but
doing
that's like saying,
his
yeah, but
bidding.
that's like saying all of
Where
America
goes,
is Trump.
well, what decisions Trump makes, we don't have any
There's a,
say in it,
but there's
right?
a huge, I know, but there
He made
still
a
is a
decision
huge
to
opposition.
drag us in. He made a decision to drag us into
Right.
this war with Iran, right?
But I'm just
But
saying, it's still a democratic governmental system, even though it's this parliamentary crazy democracy that has an enormous number of radical right-wing Israelis in there, who, by the
yeah,
way, the first of whom I remember the day they arrived. And you know where they arrived from in Israel? I remember, I've been to Israel several times, and I had never seen a prostitute on the streets until one day I went to Haifa and there were hookers everywhere. And I was like, what the hell am I looking at? You know what that was? The
no.
arrival of the Russians,
Hmm.
the Russian, quote unquote, Russian Jews who came there. They bought in gangsterism, they bought in hookers, they changed Israel into Potterville, right? it was
Wow.
an overnight change, but they also changed politics. They are the most radical. Next to American emigre Kahane High guys, they are the most radical in there. And they're the ones who are they push Netanyahu, they run Ben Gavir, and they have run roughshod over their left the way MAGA has run roughshod over our left. And you got a lot of left people there that just cannot coalesce into a body that resists Netanyahu, and he's taking advantage of it. He's a dictator, technically.
Well,
So he's another Trump.
my point is this, right? There's a
Mm,
significant number of MAGA who
yeah.
and it's not even just MAGA who are upset that the United States is following Israel policy, but it's people on
Yeah.
the left as well. It's almost like a I forget what you call that, but it's like both
Horseshoe
sides
theory.
are kind of
They come back.
agreeing that we should be doing by America instead of it. Why are we giving Israel so much money to fund like the things that they did in Gaza was horrendous. Why are we giving them
Well,
all those billions of dollars, right? And when I say we, I mean the Biden administration was also complicit in funding a lot of what happened in Gaza, and I was really disappointed
well,
by how that
I'm gonna
went
use
down.
the mass murderer serial killer analogy, right? Just because you might, your one of your relatives may have eaten over at your house or ate at your house while committing serial killing that you didn't know about, okay, or that you can't control, doesn't mean that you're a serial killer. Okay. I don't ever want to hear Biden brought up again with regards to Israel and genocide. Donald Trump has openly stated he will ethnically cleanse Gaza of
Oh yeah,
2.2 million people. Joe Biden never said that. Kamala Harris never said that. We were trying to be the friend who was trying to stop a drunk friend from killing people. Okay. Now, the Free Palestine movement, by the way, which I have real gripes with. I lived in the Muslim world for 40 years, right? None of these people open their goddamn mouth about Trump. There's no Free Palestine rallies at Trump in front of the White House. They're not there at MAGA rallies. They
yep,
only attack the people who could actually help. And they are I mean, they gave Michigan to Trump. They
yep,
encourage people not to vote. To be quite honest, Hamas ended American democracy along with the Israelis,
mm,
right? Because they created this world where the evangelicals who see Israel only as a platform to be destroyed for the return of Christ in the book of
that's right.
Revelations. And it's also in the Quran. Don't forget, all of this is in the Quran as well. Jesus will return, at the end of times. But these people are trying to make it come about,
Yeah,
right? Trump's danger with regards to the Muslim world and Gaza and Lebanon is it's not even in the same field, right? I mean, it's like comparing that joke, right? Barney the purple dinosaur to a live, T-Rex. Okay, Trump is out to do mayhem. Democrats are, I love you, you love me, and anyone who says
Yeah.
there's no difference between the two, you have never lived in reality. Okay, I've got two kids named after me in the Muslim world for helping defend these nations against their own internal cults of Al Qaeda and ISIS and Islamic extremism. Because that's what the war on terrorism was. It was a defensive war in the defense of Islam, right? And now we've got white supremacist crusaders mass murdering and allowing the mass murder of anybody because some people became single issue voters. And, and
Yeah.
now they, as far as I'm concerned, the Free Palestine movement advocates the ethnic cleansing of Gaza because you want Jared, Eric. Have you seen the Gaza master plan? It's insane. My late wife was a mega projects, multi-billion-dollar mega projects landscape architect in Abu Dhabi. And she would lay out these incredible, they would spend $200,000 for these graphic layouts of the future place. They've already mapped out all 25 kilometers of Gaza. And guess who's not allowed? Palestinians.
Oh, of course.
Right? They don't fly in Indian workers for that place.
So
I'm sorry that we tangented off of that.
Yeah,
it all has to do with the wars we're fighting today. It's all connected.
If that has anything to do with the videos that I think Trump had put out of like Trump Gaza or something. Do you remember those AI slot videos?
This is where he's such a moron. That was an insulting parody of him. It had transgendered men with beards doing
I saw that. Yeah.
And Trump thought it was real. He's such an idiot. This is the guy. Full disclosure here, right? I am an intelligence professional. I watch how our opponents do things, how we do things, and I give credit where credit's due. We lost the propaganda war with Iran. Have you watched the IRGC's Lego videos?
Oh yeah, those are fire. I hate to say it.
Democratic Party needs to hire those guys. I mean, we need to jump onto that with both feet. Maybe not hire. That company's called Explosive Media. They're in Iran. They had rap videos, and every time I saw one, I thought, easy to understand, easy to consume. Explained to me, clarified to me a lot of Shia Islamic beliefs that 93 million people believe in the deepest parts of their heart, right? Mm-hmm. And I go, wow. But they explain all of this. They had one today that showed the Bahrain Grand Prix being reduced to having camel races run on the course. And I thought, the Iranians know their people in that region. And we're just a bunch of clowns running in, drunk monkeys with machine guns dancing.
So do you think this, taking into account that Israel and Lebanon are still fighting, and I think Iran is still fighting with Israel, but do you think in essence this war is over, or does this war still have some legs as far as the United States is concerned?
United States-Iran war is over. United States-Iran war is over. The question is, now, Iran can just say, well, we're just not going to open the Strait of Hormuz. You guys with multi-pass, come on through. All right? They said they're going to allow up to 20 ships a day to come through. 2 were allowed today. 2 came through, and they were already pre-authorized. Their multi-pass was stamped. So, but Israel... United Arab Emirates, I don't know what's up with them. They're part of this whole deal, and they attacked an Iranian oil facility in Lavon Island and another one at Syria Island. I fought a missile battle off Syria Island. I know those islands like the back of my hands. And for the UAE to fly fighter jets up there and bomb that refinery, And so Iran bombed their Fujairah refinery today. They can make it hurt. The Iranians can make it hurt, and they can go, United Arab Emirates has violated the ceasefire. You better rein them boys in, because if you ain't got a multi-pass, you're not going through. We're going to limit that now to 4 ships per day, not 20 as agreed. Don't forget, there is no paper agreement. It's all verbal, right? Come Friday, they all meet in Islamabad, and God forbid, our representative is J.D. Vance, Steve Witkoff, the guy they call Dim Philby, and Dim Philby. It's an allusion to Kim Philby, the Russian spy in British, because Steve Witkoff is essentially an agent of Moscow. He doesn't do anything without getting Moscow's approval, and he thinks he's cutting a real estate deal. I'm gonna give Russia Donbass. I'm gonna take Gaza. We're gonna get these islands in the Strait of Hormuz, and we're gonna own all the oil. You're a moron.
Hang on a second. Before we get off this, want one of the questions I wanted to ask you is that Iran, J.D. Vance is supposedly going over to negotiate
Islamabad
in Iran, right?
We're so screwed.
They wanted him. Iran preferred him over Dim Philby or Steve Witkoff. Why? Why?
Because one, you know why? They want the legitimacy of the vice president of the United States here, which means all these deals are going to be pinnacle to pinnacle now, right? Now the Iranians can send their deputies over, but we want J.D. Vance, right? And when the Iranians get everything they want, J.D. Vance will be the one who gave it to them. Look. Iran has been a civilization for 5,000 years. It has been Islamic since the year 651, right? So this is not, I always use this analogy because I lived in the United Arab Emirates for 10 years. And every year I would go to the camel festival down near Liwa, where they would have the camel beauty contest and have these massive trades and sales of camel. You can go there and buy a camel, and they'll take your money, and you'll be paying 4 times the value of that camel. And you'll put it in your truck, and you'll go home, and you'll have it in your front yard in Abu Dhabi. You'll come back the next morning, and the camel will be gone because it will have walked home. And they'll say, "What your camel looks like?" And you'll say, "It looks like it's brown, and it's got the camel." And they'll say, "Khalas, not here." And the camel will be sitting right there with eyelash and lipstick on it, which, by the way, they actually did. The point is, you cannot go into their culture and think that you can trick them, right? The reason that Iran says we're going to charge $2 million, right? And everybody goes, "That's outrageous." And they go, "Well, your ships are worth $250 million when they pass, right?"
That's a lot, yeah.
We're going to split it with the other country on the other end of the Strait of Hormuz, Oman. Suddenly Oman, which is relatively poor, gets $90 billion a year for doing nothing.
Wow.
If you don't tell me that the Omanis aren't going to agree to that, of course they're going to agree to that.
Yeah.
The Iranians, by the way, $90 billion a year, which is the cost of $2 million per ship for 140 ships per day over 365 days, is $190 million, $160 billion. And they split that 2 ways. Iran actually earns more actual cash than the value of their oil and natural gas sales.
Woof. Wow.
So it's like this war turned a profit for Iran. Every one of those military bases is going to be rebuilt. They're not going to build the buildings back. Everything's going underground now. Everything's going underground into mountains, military bases, airports for their new future Chinese 5th generation stealth fighter jets, which they don't want. They don't want advanced surface-to-air missile systems that have to sit out in the air now. These young guys who are younger than me, I would be the oldest guy out of the guys that survived. All the guys above me, 65 to 90, dead. Now it's our turn. And I would go to all these young guys in their 30s and 40s, and I go, I want to see every base that was destroyed turned over to the local communities, rebuilt as shelters and homes. But every damn military base is going underground into a mountain now. Make it happen, right? No more airplanes. All the missile launchers will be just holes popping up from super secret underground James Bond bases, which they have under there. Buy tunnel boring machines for the tunnel, which is what they used. And the whole armed forces is going underground. We're never losing another man. No more ships. Everything's small boats. Everything's drones. And I want every person in the IRGC, all 150,000 of you, you're all going to learn to fly FPV drones with explosive devices on them. So that next time we're going to let you have the air and the sea. We want you to come on the ground, and you're going to be treated like the Russian army's getting treated by Ukraine. 1 million drones. That's what I would do. And guess what? They don't have to listen to me to come and do that. They're going to do that because these guys who are in their 20s and 30s, why are we buying Chinese ballistic missiles? Why are we buying fighter jets? Why don't you let me create underground factories creating 1 million FPV drones this year? That was Ukraine's goal, and they met it. 1 million in a year. Now, are you ready for this? The average Russian soldier is killed by a drone, not a bullet. They don't shoot bullets at them anymore. They just fly a drone and they blow them up completely into 4 parts.
Is that no one's getting shot at warfare? Anymore. Is that the future of warfare?
Unless some electronic gizmo comes in that can break the fiber optics, like they have lasers now that break fiber optics, and lasers may be the next venue of it. But okay, come towards our coast, right? They can build drones now that can go out 100 kilometers. And I personally believe they didn't fire off any of their anti-ship missiles except the 2 container ships. I think they probably still have 1,000 or more of those just sitting there. And people say, well, what are the Iranians doing? We're bombing them. We drop bombs all over them. This is what they're doing. I'm going to tell you what the entire Iranian Armed Forces, IRGC, and Basti is doing right now. Having a chai, having a tea, eating fried bread, right? Like Peshawari naan or something like that. They're eating dates. They're having kebabs. They're hanging out with their wife and their kids. Because the war didn't come to them. The war came from the air. The war is on buildings. The war is on very select individuals. But there's 93 million people that they saw the war, most of them on television and radio. But most Iranians were not affected by the war. Country exists.
Malcolm, as always, I have run out of time. I had like 5, 6 more questions at least that I wanted to get to.
We can do a speed round. Make it quick.
I did want to ask you about this, right?
Yeah.
The other day we saw a human chain of Iranians around the power plant. What does that mean in terms of, I don't know, national sentiment, or, what does that mean for the Iranians to gather around a power plant, which they believed might have been a target? What does that mean that they were all willing to stand there with their hands joined in terms of, facing a common threat? Are they galvanized, or does that mean you Iranians are now galvanized against the United States? What do you think?
Well, that's not every Iranian, right? Every Iranian is sending their kids to school, going to their day job, doing trade and business, getting groceries, and is not generally involved in politics. But the Basti, right, which is the Iranian government's official civil volunteer force, has 25 million card-carrying members. But like the Nazi Party, only like 1 million of them are out there doing anything, right? It's sometimes you have to have your card to get certain favors or to shop in certain areas, or to get through checkpoints. But there is 150,000 hardcore IRGC. There is 600,000 hardcore Basti. They all have wives and kids. So when they say, hey, go out and form a human shield around this place, well, it's possible. It's possible they could get killed. But again, let's go back to what Shia Islam is, right? At the end, okay, the Islamic history lesson for some of you kids, right? At the advent of the first Islamic fitna, right? The first Islamic civil war, which was in 656. That is when the succession for the third caliph was being chosen. Prophet Muhammad died. Abu Bakr, his most trusted companion, became the caliph, and Ali, his son-in-law, did not like that. He was married to Fatima, and he thought he should have been the caliph, right? The governor of Syria, Muawiyah, out of Damascus, at the death of Abu Bakr, said it should be chosen amongst the companions. Ali said, no, I'm the son-in-law. I'm connected by blood. I should be caliph. Two separate armies. Ali lived in Basra. Muawiyah lived in Damascus. They met right at the Battle of Qadisiyah, right outside of Baghdad. I've been there, by the way, Qadisiyah, neighborhood of Baghdad. Now, they didn't have a war, right? They were about to have a war, but then they sat down and they parlayed because Muawiyah put the pages of the Quran on there. Forgive me if some of this is backwards. And they parlayed. But a small group broke away from them who was advocating anarchy in Islam, and they were known as the Khawarij, right? The outsiders, who would later be remanifested in Islamic history as Al-Qaeda and ISIS.
Oh, wow.
That group, the Khawarij, were such badasses. There were only 1,000 of them. Muawiyah's army and Ali's army wiped them off the face of the earth, except I believe the number was 6. 6 of them survived. I'll have to check. I wrote a whole book about this, about cultism in Islam. And those 6 assassinated Caliph Ali. And that assassination split Islam into 2, right? The next caliph chosen by the companions of the Prophet, right? The people who followed Ali are known as Shia, which means schism or sect, section. And they sectioned off and they went into 2 different ways, the Sunnah and the Shia, all because a terrorist group assassinated him, right?
Wow.
Now, bad things happened after that. A group called the Karamata manifested itself from these Ismaili Shia in Eastern Arabian Gulf. They literally marched on Mecca and wiped it out. Broke the stone in the Kaaba because they felt that Islam was idolatrous because you were going on Hajj pilgrimages. My point of this is there's a history here. And the story of the death of Caliph Ali, the death of his son Hussein and Hassan, all right, is about pain and suffering. And during the festival, the remembrance of Ashura, I have seen these guys with razor-covered chains cut their hair. I have been in the shrine of Ali, the shrine of Hussein. I have seen these guys whip themselves bloody. You don't think 1 million of them are going to fight us? You don't think them stepping in front as a human shield around a refinery is not their deep felt religious belief? I respect every one of them because you know why? As opponents, you had better know what motivates those people. They will kill you. I had one of my guys, last story. One of my bodyguards was in there, named his kid after me, named his kid Malik. And he called me Chief. He said, Chief, I love you. But you know, if Sheikh al-Sistani, if Imam Sistani says, I have to kill you, you know I must. And I was like, that's fair. I said, fair. But why? He says, I said, that's fair, but why? He goes, because you're not Shia Muslim. You know, if you're Sunni Muslim, or so he thought, or so he thought. You're Sunni Muslim. I go, I have been to the shrine of Ali. I've been to the shrine of Hussein. I have been to Karbala. I've prayed at the mosque in Najaf. He goes, maybe you're Muslim. Maybe I will ask first. Maybe you're Shia. Maybe I will ask first. Maybe I don't kill you when I do. And I thought, But I learned a lesson. Every one of my other guys were like, "Yeah, Chief, you know he's right. That's right." And I thought, it's a good thing. It's a good thing they're on my side. I
Wow.
have not gone back. But if you ignore their depth of their religious belief, you will always see that photograph as crazy. I see it as serious. These are serious players that we need to respect that.
Someone, one of our viewers, was asking. That said they saw something today that says Iran has like 30 different military branches. So if one is taken out, they have another to take over. Have you ever heard of this?
Yeah, that's not military branches. That is what they did was they decentralized their military command. And the way that they did that was they created a command structure in which the country was broken down into 31 independent military districts. And the whole strategy was called the Mosaic strategy. Every one of those commanders, in the absence of orders above, has I like to whip it out, it has this playbook. And the playbook is, if attacked, day one, if you receive this code word. Right now, by the way, these guys don't have integrated electronics and mobile phones that are encrypted, radios that are encrypted. This is why you see 12-year-olds volunteering for the Basti. Those guys are on mopeds and they are taking physically written notes from one
Old
place to
school.
the other, right?
Wow.
Old school. And guess what?
Wow.
Worked at the National Security Agency. You cannot intercept a message that has been read in your head on a
Wow.
piece of paper. If
Interesting.
it ain't on an electronic means or cannot be seen by satellite, right? And it's that fluke of the moment, and it may mean nothing to you. It may just say Peacock 17. Peacock 17, what is up today? Oh, we are blasting refineries in the United Arab Emirates. I have an allocation of 21 ballistic missiles, 25 drones. Okay. And everyone else has Peacock 18, Peacock 14, and it's just like whoosh, 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 and these things
Yeah.
start flying.
Interesting.
Old school.
Yeah.
Very old school. They spent 47 years preparing for this war. And guess what? I'm going to be straight up with you. Iran won this war. They won it. They survived. The country's intact. Their nuclear materials are in their possession. They lost a cheesy old navy. They can buy new modern frigates from China. They got rid of airplanes, F-14s from 1975. We sold to the Shah of Iran, right? F-4 Phantoms. Now they're going to be Chinese J-57, right? 5th generation stealth fighters next year. They're going to trade that for oil, and it's going to look like not Temu. It's going to look like Alibaba, right? That the Alibaba shopping place.
Yeah. Yeah.
They ain't going to Temu nothing. These guys are going to get quality this time. They're going to pay for quality. But I don't think they're going to fly fighter jets. I think they're going to keep this Mosaic structure, and they're going to have a lot more anti-aircraft that is hidden underground.
I'll tell you, it seems to me like I still feel like we don't really know, Americans don't really know what the hell we were even involved in this war for. We have higher gas prices, higher everything, and they said if the war was to have stopped like a week ago, it was going to take another 6 months for gas prices to come back down to where they were before.
It still will. And since Israel is just blowing this whole thing off and viewing Lebanon, they are trying to, I'm going to be straight with you, right? And they are attempting to Gazify everything south of the Litani River. I think they have full intention. 1 million people were pushed out of there. This is like the 5th time they've gone up to Litani. Another thing that I suspect Netanyahu is doing.
When you say Gazify, you mean they want to pound it until it's nothing but rubble.
Every building from the Israeli border to the Litani River, including the city of Tyre, I suspect they are going to demolish. And it will be small piles of rubble, entire villages that used to have 10,000, 20,000 people are going away. This is Netanyahu. The average Israeli would say, hey, let's just get 20 kilometers. But this is where Netanyahu's going to find out a new Hezbollah is. I was 19 when I had my first run-in with Hezbollah in 1983. Okay, them and the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps. I was 19. I'm 64 now. These people have been around a very long time, for almost 50 years. So you may have killed off that leadership with the pagers, but the kids who are in charge now, they're going to go, we're not going to build 100,000 rockets for the fun of bombarding the Jews. We're not going to do that. We're going to build FPV drones, and we're going to kill one drone, one soldier. And don't forget that Israel already had a Southern Lebanon war. I've got that book around here. I was involved in it at one point, where their division, their core headquarters was in Tyre, and that, you know, they occupied it for 20 years and lost over 1,000 soldiers. 1,000 soldiers in Israel. I think the actual number is 900, but that's like losing 100,000 in the United States. Wow. Every soldier in Israel is the equivalent of like 25 in the U.S. And so they can't take those losses. So I suspect new Hezbollah, and I think they start referring to them, these kids are underground in garages building drones. And then suddenly fiber optic drones are going to start flooding in, and they're going to feel like they are Russian soldiers. They hit a Merkava the other day with 2 drones, one to kill it, one videotape it. And then when they got a good video, they hit the second drone, hit it, and kill it. Now, the Israelis are foot soldier guys. They like ground combat. There's going to be that video. One of these days, you're going to see it. And I'm glad we're not going to see it in Iran with U.S. sailors or Marines. There's going to be a video of that FPV drone coming right into that guy's face, and his mother will be able to recognize him. And the next video is going to be him blowing into, not joking, will be him blowing into 4 pieces, just like we see all the Russian FPV videos. And Israel will be outraged. And they'll go, whoa, the average Israeli doesn't want a war. Netanyahu, he sees war as an engineer, as a program to re-engineer the ethnic and geographic makeup of the Middle East. Right? But that's Netanyahu. That's not the average Israeli. Average Israeli would rather all this stop, you know? But he'll be happy to know that new Hezbollah is not going to be raining rockets down on him. Any rockets that come are legacy rockets. What's coming next is drones killing, individual drone killing is individual Israeli soldiers and nothing more. And at that point, after maybe 200, 300, 400 casualties, when kids in southern Lebanon from small little hides managed to kill as many soldiers as was killed on October 7th, people will start saying, hey, you know, we need to cut some deals here. But these kids have no support from Iran. So entirely new group will be self-motivated through their love of Shia Islam and the occupation of whatever Israel's doing south of the Litani River. One last thing. I actually do believe, and I've said this to my Lebanese friends, I believe Netanyahu is attempting to incite the second Lebanese civil war, to break Lebanese society, to let it go back to factions and killing each other. And I think that's what he intended for Iran also. He intended civil war to break out, which would neutralize Iran at every level. You wouldn't even have to think about them anymore.
Wow. Malcolm, thank you so much for joining me again. I always feel like I got an education when I have you on the show.
I'm sure you're going to have those. I'm sure you're going to have those Shia scholars going, he was wrong here. He was wrong there. He pretty much got it. He pretty much, what black guy knows about Zulfikar, the sword? Yeah. Oh, yeah. If you're trying to kill me, I'm going to know everything about you, especially when I got kids named after me.
Oh, we got at some later point, we will talk about those kids. And
I got 2 Shia Muslim kids. They're not my kids. They were named for me. I shot the machine gun at the weddings and the births. So I'm part of the community.
Excellent. Hang tight for me just for 2 seconds while I sign off here.
All right.
And folks, thank you for joining me for another episode of the Defiant Weekly. I'm your host, Majid Bedelin, a.k.a. BDD, a.k.a. Brooklyn Dead Defiant. And I thank you all for joining me this week. And I look forward to seeing you guys here next week. Same time, same place. I love you all. Peace. Incredible person, incredible human being.
Yes,
famous.
yes.